This is crazy. The Calgary Flames have been linked to a New York Rangers star, and the deal might make more sense than many others on the table. New reports have revealed that there could be more Flames trades this offseason than expected, and the Flames' defensive core could look very different come October. We're going to get into all that and more in this video, but first I want to welcome you to Flames Digest. I'm Mark Griffith. If you're new around here and you love the Flames, make sure you subscribe so you can stay up to date on all the latest news, updates, reports, and rumors revolving around your Calgary Flames. We would love to welcome you to the Flames Digest family. Let's hop straight in, shall we, and talk about how the Flames have been linked to Laffy. If you don't know who Laffy is and you didn't recognize him in the intro video or from the thumbnail, I'm of course talking about Alexis Lafreniere, Alex Lafreniere from the New York Rangers. And it has been reported, so this comes from an Instagram account called Sea of Red Media, and so they did this little graphic here. Now, the report itself originally comes from Bleacher Report, so take that with a grain of salt, please, why don't you? But the report is that the Flames are listed as a potential landing spot for Rangers forward Alexis Lafreniere. And I decided to do some digging and found the article that this originally came from. So here it is. It's written by Adam Gretz. As we saw, it is from Bleacher Report, but he writes 6 2025 offseason trade landing spots for Alexis Lafreniere amid NHL rumors. Pardon me. So the Rangers, they obviously had a super disappointing season, one of the most, if not the most disappointing in the NHL last year, and they have to make some changes. And one of the biggest disappointments over the past, 5 years now is Lafreniere, who was supposed to be, the next Sidney Crosby, but it hasn't quite panned out. So they could look to trade him away, and the Flames could be a landing spot for it. So here's what the article says. They're number 2 of those 6. Montreal was the first, of course. It seems like most French-Canadian players always get linked to Montreal first. But when the 2024-25 season began, it looked like it was going to be a rebuilding year for the Calgary Flames, especially after they traded away so many veteran players and pending free agents over the previous year and a half. And this is true, but as we know, instead the Flames ended up outperforming their preseason expectations and very nearly pulled off a surprising playoff berth. They actually finished higher than the Rangers, believe it or not. If they're going to improve on that performance next season, they're going to have to do something about an offense that finished 29th in the NHL in goals scored. Yes, Dustin Wolf carried our team. The Flames are another team that has a ton of draft pick capital, owning multiple first-round picks in each of the next 2 draft classes. This would also be an opportunity for a potential hockey-based trade that doesn't take into account future considerations or draft picks. Interesting. How could that work out? Well, the Flames need offense. The Rangers need defense. Could something centered around, say, Rasmus Andersson be a starting point? So an Andersson for Lafreniere trade, would it be just those parts? I do not think so. I think there'd have to be more, but it's already super duper interesting, and it might be more realistic than some of the other trades we've talked about on the channel. I'm sure you've seen across social media and the internet involving Rasmus Andersson in the past couple months here. So Andersson is coming off a down year, but he was not quite 100%. Only having 1 year remaining on his contract is also not ideal, but we're just spitballing hypotheticals here, and both teams have something that the other needs. So maybe something could potentially happen. Now, for us as Flames fans, we know what Raz is about, but let's get into Lafreniere's stats. So as we see here, his junior career was absolutely incredible. Since he played for Rimouski, everyone thought he would be the next Sidney Crosby since he was essentially putting up Crosby numbers. But so far in the NHL, it hasn't really gone to plan. He did get 57 points a couple seasons ago, which still isn't exactly what you'd expect from him. Has he been given the best opportunity? No. He's never been the number 1 guy. He's never got, the most minutes, never got the top power play minutes or anything like that. But last season, only 45 points, and the Rangers were just a real disappointment. So, I don't know. Lafreniere's trade value is quite low, you would think. So maybe the Flames could pull something off here involving Rasmus Andersson. It's very interesting that Lafreniere has been linked to Calgary, and I think a lot of people would want to take him on the Calgary Flames. Of course, it would have to depend on the price of a trade, but honestly, something involving Andersson could definitely work out. Again, I don't think it would ever be a 1-for-1, but still, Lafreniere, he fits what Conroy's looking for. He's still young, he can definitely hopefully put up some points if put in the right place, put with the right players, and given kind of that number 1 opportunity that he hasn't in the Big Apple. Maybe it could happen in Cowtown. I don't hate this at all. I would happily welcome Laffy in Calgary, of course, for the right price. But overall, this is very interesting. Now, we could have more trades coming because so far all the trade talks have kind of been around Rasmus Andersson, but another report from that Sea of Red media account said this. So, according to Frank Saravalli, so again, take it with a grain of salt, but they say Damil Miramanov and Jake Bean could be potential trade candidates this offseason. This could mean more ice time for Zane Parekh and Hunter Brustevich. Very interesting overall. I don't know how much you'd get for these guys, to be quite honest. And why don't we pull up some of their stats just to see what they're about. So we'll start with Bean here. In 64 games last season, he got 7 points, got a couple goals. He was a 0, which is pretty surprising. I was kind of surprised that he was a 0 in the plus minus in about 15 minutes of ice time per game through those 64. Wasn't a great season for him at all. Obviously didn't produce too much, but he is a Calgarian, so it was happy to see him play in his hometown. But I don't know, it's just, he's almost 27 now, and it's just, I would be very open to trading him. I just, again, don't know what he would be worth. Maybe if you try and package these two, but I don't know who they'd go for. If we get into Miramanov here, he played just 44 games, so a little over half the season. 2 goals, 7 assists for him for 9 points. More time on ice per game, obviously, as he played with Weegs quite a bit this past season. And he's also, he'll be 28 by the time next season starts. And again, I really like both these guys. I like Bean and Miramanov, but they're so expendable. We could definitely do with not having them around. So you never know. I guess a trade could definitely happen. I just don't know if anyone would really want them. So that's my take on that. Feel free to let me know. Do you think Miramanov and Bean could be traded, and if so, for what? If we get into the last report here of another trade, of course, I had to go back to Rasmus Andersson. It's all about the defensemen today. That's why the decor could look very different come October. Hopefully we have more of those young guys in. But a report here, this one comes from David Pagnotta, so take this with arguably the biggest grain of salt so far in the video. I kid, I love all these guys. But the Senators have an incredible offer on the table, put that in quotations, for Rasmus Andersson. It's good enough that the Flames are strongly considering it. Now, I don't know the validity of this just because there's 2 things that make me skeptical on this. One is that it's been reported in the past that Ottawa is on Rasmus Andersson's no-trade list. I can't remember how many teams it is. I want to say there's 6, but I believe the Senators are one of those teams. And it just makes sense. It's one of those teams that seems to always find their way. You know, Buffalo, Winnipeg, Columbus, even Calgary sometimes. Ottawa's there as well, even though they're an up-and-coming team. But the other reason was actually because of a report that came out today, and it's that Ottawa is looking for a top 6 forward. Now, let me tell you, Rasmus Andersson, sure, he's shown in the past he can score and stare down the opposing fans, but he's not a top 6 forward. So the Senators are in the market for a proven top 6 scoring forward. Do we really have that? Maybe you could argue that Kadri or Huberdeau are proven top 6 forwards and proven scorers in that way. So in that way, we might have to package up Rasmus and one of those 2 guys. Is that what the Sens want? I don't think so. I think they're more so looking for another Cousins that they kind of already acquired. So I don't know if Rasmus Andersson to Ottawa is totally valid and this Pagnotta report makes any sense. He's also one who's, I think, still thinks Marner has a chance of coming to Calgary, even though it's been reported that he's not going to sign with a Canadian team. But overall, let's just see what ends up happening. And let's get into the comment of the day. It comes from the most recent video, and it goes perfectly with what we just said. I really had to refrain from asking this question myself throughout the video because I wanted to save it. Because DOR65, they said, what's the best deal the Flames could get from Rasmus? So what is the ideal trade the Flames make? And feel free to put in, any trade proposals down in the comments. And obviously when we're saying, the best deal, the most ideal deal, you could say, oh yeah, we want McDavid, Draisaitl, 10 first rounders and, and future considerations. But no, the best realistic deal that really fits what Conroy is looking for, feel free to drop it down below in the comments. I feel like there's one for almost every team in the NHL you could make at this point, but should be very exciting to see. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please subscribe like you saw here today and have a wonderful rest of your day.